4 years ago today, Star Wars Battlefront 2 was released. One of the most polarizing, controversial games with one of the greatest crazy comebacks I have ever seen from a video game. A game that literally changed the gaming industry as we know it. To say Battlefront 2 has had an eventful 4 years would be the understatement of the century. Nothing was ever straightforward about this game, and nothing was ever boring. There has always been something to talk about, even now when it no longer has any live service. It still makes people talk, as it's a constant reminder that EA abandoned the Battlefront franchise to focus on a declining Battlefield franchise. And here we are 4 years later, and Battlefront 2 still to this day remains as one of the most popular Star Wars games. Again, despite the fact it got abandoned at its peak in late April of 2020. So as it's been 4 years to the day since the controversial release of Battlefront 2, I thought I'd do a 4-year anniversary video on this game, take a trip down memory lane, relive the story of one of the most eventful video games in history, and discuss where it's at now and where it's going. Now, Jedi Fallen Order and Battlefront 2015 in the past 2 days also had their release anniversaries, with Jedi Fallen Order having its 2-year anniversary on the 15th and Battlefront's 6-year anniversary on the 16th, and now Battlefront 2 today. So I do have videos on them up on the channel already, so make sure you check them out once we're done here. So, Battlefront 2, let's take a trip down memory lane, revisit the controversies, discuss the game itself. This is the story of EA's most controversial game. Now, where do we even start with Battlefront 2? A game that in early 2017 was filled with so much promise. A leaked trailer showcasing a brand new game, with a campaign which was a sorely missed aspect of its baby brother Star Wars Battlefront. As well as multiplayer which spanned all eras of Star Wars. Like, the marketing for this game had John Boyega standing there, laying down the law, saying that Battlefront 2 had way more content than Battlefront 2015. More eras, more heroes, more maps, more vehicles, you name it, Battlefront 2 was going to be bigger in every single way. But I don't think I've ever seen a game look so promising before its release. It was exactly what the fans wanted. I still remember the beta drop for this game, playing on Naboo with Darth Maul and Rey. It was so much fun. But that is where the problems started to occur with this game. It was a grind to progress. It didn't matter whether you finished at the top of the leaderboards or the bottom, you got the same amount of credits to progress your characters. It was warning sign number 1. Then some time went by, and then the early access and pre-order editions came to be, and that's where everything went wrong for Battlefront 2. The pay-to-win system, which the game was entirely built upon, had basically ruined the game. Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader were not even playable at launch, because they were locked behind a stupidly high credit paywall that would have taken an unrealistic amount of hours to unlock. Unless you bought the loot boxes, which would be about the only way to use them unless you lived in your parents' basement and stunk of Doritos and disappointment. Then maybe you'd be able to unlock them in a couple months. Not to mention the infamous Reddit post that just kickstarted everything. Gamers all over just said enough is enough. Governments got involved, and it helped revolutionize microtransactions and gambling in the gaming industry as we know it. Again, that's why I say that this is EA's most controversial game. Most games these days get absolutely belted with backlash if they are pay to win, and that all started with Battlefront 2's controversy. That's what caused the shift to more ethical monetization techniques in the industry for the games we play today. Except for sports games, they get a hall pass for pay to win for some reason. But needless to say, this pay to win issue effectively drove Star Wars games into the dirt, and Battlefront 2 was more of a meme than the promising game that fans thought it was. Now granted, for those who did stick around, there was fun to be had. Not necessarily from the campaign, which overall was kind of disappointing, but you know, it had its moments. But for the multiplayer, the game looked incredible, it played reasonably well, the heroes were fun, the maps were amazing, but it got real old real fast. Because DICE had to try and salvage the game and fix the progression system after the pay-to-win mechanic was removed. And that meant content got put on the back burner, which didn't help the game, and kind of killed it for a little while. So moving into 2018, that was where Battlefront 2 started to get back on track. Granted, there were a lot of speed humps along the way. The game did have Clone Wars content, but it didn't have much, and that's what fans wanted. And they didn't really get it, because the first few content drops were Solo: A Star Wars Story and Ewok Hunt. So understandably, fans who stuck around with the game had their loyalty tested, until DICE finally announced in June 2018 that things would be turning around for Battlefront 2. With the announcement of Geonosis, Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Grievous, Count Dooku, and Anakin Skywalker. That was the content that fans had wanted this entire time, and it was going to be coming. And although it was a turbulent process, that started Battlefront 2's comeback, and over the course of the next year, Battlefront 2 would become the game that it was always meant to be. With reinforcement additions, heroes, maps, game modes, it was finally becoming the game everyone thought it was going to be. Player numbers were rising, and it looked like Battlefront 2 was finally putting its launch issues behind it. And that takes us to the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020, which was the absolute peak of Battlefront 2. Little did fans know though, it was also going to be the game's final months. The Rise of Skywalker update marked the peak of Battlefront 2. The game had a Celebration Edition released with new artwork that basically said, alright, Battlefront 2 is actually a different game now. Here, buy it please. And to be fair, it was. Word of mouth started to turn positive regarding the game. Player numbers went through the roof, and things couldn't have been going better. Not to mention, the release of Jedi Fallen Order also helped aid Battlefront 2's reputation, as it marked a change for Star Wars games under EA. Some good games with some good content, but as the months went by into 2020, it all changed. Whilst Battlefront 2 was in its prime, after the reputation had been pretty much patched up, EA decided to abandon Battlefront 2 to go and focus on the rapidly declining Battlefield franchise. Now, to EA's credit, they brought Battlefront 2 back without really making that much money apart from initial launch sales. But let's be real, that was more about reputation repair than anything. But they dropped Battlefront 2 at probably the worst time they could have. It was like, here you go people, the game's finally good now, and then they just left it for dead. It was terrible timing and still one of the worst decisions I've seen this game go through. The game started with controversy and it pretty much ended with controversy. To be honest, I think EA should still at some point let a smaller crew at DICE bring live service back to Battlefront 2, as they had a lot of ideas that they were working on that just they're never going to get to use. But unfortunately, I think that ship has sailed. Tons of developers that worked on Battlefront have left, and we found out recently that EA, at least through DICE, have no plans of continuing with Battlefront anytime soon, basically ruling a big red cross over Battlefront 3, because instead they're going to be making more Battlefield games. I've seen a few people say, well, yeah, of course they are. Battlefield makes more money. And all I'll say to that is, both Battlefronts made more than Battlefield 5. They sold way more copies. Look at the sales numbers, which don't even equate for the Celebration Editions Battlefront 2 sold. So even though Battlefront 2 was one of the most controversial games in history, and word of mouth could not have literally been worse, it still sold more copies than Battlefield 5. Now, I'm not saying Battlefield is nothing compared to Battlefront. Obviously, Battlefield is huge, but so is Battlefront. And there's a reason they've thrown all their resources at Battlefield instead of at Battlefront. It's because Battlefront was traveling a hell of a lot better than Battlefield. So because of that, EA have shunted Star Wars to the side to try and save Battlefield with 2042, which from what I can tell so far does not seem to be going very well for them. The smart thing for EA to do is palm the Battlefront franchise off to another developer so that they can capitalize on both franchises instead of killing one to try and save the other. And again, judging off 2042's early reception, it does not seem to be working, but we'll see how that goes. So that's the gist of the story of Battlefront 2. A roller coaster doesn't even begin to explain it. But now I want to take this part of the video to look at some specifics. The heroes. The hero roster for Battlefront 2 is obviously miles better than the Battlefront 2015 roster. Now, the heroes are what makes Battlefront Battlefront. The game kind of lives and dies by its heroes. The initial launch roster for Battlefront 2 was pretty good, and then post-launch we got Anakin, Obi-Wan, Grievous, and Dooku, 4 super strong hero additions. And then we got BB-8 and BB-9E. I guess DICE were trying to do something new, but there was just a lot of other options they should have gone with first. So the hero gameplay itself was a massive step up from Battlefront 2015, particularly with lightsaber heroes. Granted, the hero gameplay is a little bit buggy, but lightsaber heroes work really well in this game for the most part. In Battlefront 2015, lightsaber swings consisted of the same 2 animations. In Battlefront 2, on the other hand, there is a lot more to it. Much better animations, and the abilities are a lot of fun. Now, most of the hero abilities are just the same thing on different heroes with small changes like the pushes and the pulls. But some of the best times I have had playing Battlefront 2 have been in the hero modes, specifically heroes versus villains. When this mode is working well, it's one of the best modes in the game, period. Problem is, it's probably ran terribly more often than not due to bugs and balancing, which is something Battlefront 2 struggled with for a long time. Like, remember launch Anakin? Like, that was actually pain. Now, in terms of the hero roster, I need to address the elephant in the room. The hero roster in this game is incomplete. It just is. There is literally a space in the hero menu where another hero should have been, but it's just empty, which is a constant reminder that this game was cut off before it should have been. I mean, where is Ahsoka, Mace Windu, Ventress, Padme, Mando, Jyn Erso, Krennic, Greedo, Nine Nunb, Poe Dameron, or various other more obscure characters that we've seen in earlier Battlefront titles from LucasArts? Again, this feeds the argument as to why a Battlefront 3 should be getting made now that Battlefront 2 is done and dusted. The interactions with the heroes in this game as well were so much fun, and speaking of interactions, Grievous has voice lines for Ahsoka and I believe Padme as well. So it just goes to show that DICE had bigger things intended for this game, but EA simply just did not allow it to happen. Overall, apart from the clearly incomplete hero roster, the heroes in Battlefront 2 are a big win. And I can't wait to see when the Battlefront franchise continues someday what happens with the heroes. So the maps and the game modes in Battlefront 2, they're a bit of a mixed bag for me. On one hand, you've got some great maps that will probably stand the test of time as Battlefront franchise greats. And then you have Jakku. But I mean, when it comes to maps like Kamino, Naboo, Kashyyyk, Mos Eisley, the Death Star, even Starkiller Base, I think DICE done a hell of a job on some of these maps. The visuals are of course always incredible, and some maps manage their choke points better than others, but I've got no complaints when it comes to most of the maps in this game. Star Wars games had never looked better than the maps in Battlefront 2, and just walking around these maps is more than enough to satisfy you. Now, as for the game modes, the biggest problem with the modes in this game is that there is no Galactic Conquest, the most popular mode from the OG Battlefront games. It's not here, and it is a loss that this game really does feel. Supremacy was supposed to fill that void, and it kinda does, but it's just not it. It's okay, but it's not the best. Galactic Assault is just Walker Assault from the previous games rebranded to accommodate all three eras, and the smaller modes in Battlefront 2 just aren't as good as the ones in Battlefront 2015, in my opinion. Not to mention, it's impossible to find games on most of them because people only really play the larger modes or the more mainstream hero modes. Like the Starfighter modes basically died not long after the game came out, as there was practically no innovation in this area after the game's release, as Criterion seemingly stopped working on the Starfighters. Not gonna lie though, I thought the Starfighter modes in Battlefront 2 were pretty good. I much prefer it over Squadrons. But there is no mode in Battlefront 2 that when I jump on, I just head straight for. Unlike with Battlefront 2015, I just knew that the second I booted that game up, I wanted to jump into the Bespin playlist and jump into some sabotage. I don't get that with Battlefront 2, which does suck. But the overall experience of Battlefront 2 in 2021, it's a positive one. Apart from the behind the scenes stuff regarding the game and EA mishandling it so much, it's a great game. And you know, there has been times where it's been a dumpster fire. There's been times where it may very well have been the best Battlefront game. But right now, here in 2021, I don't think it's any of those. What Battlefront 2 is right now is a waste of potential. Nothing more, nothing less. Another year of live service, and this game could very well have been the best Battlefront game ever made, but it really did need that extra year and that extra content. So guys, what do you all think of Battlefront 2 4 years on from its release? Right now, here in 2021. Are you still playing Battlefront 2? Are you hoping for a new Battlefront installment sometime soon? Go ahead and let me know down in those comments below, and remember to check out the videos I've done for Fallen Order and Battlefront's anniversaries the past couple days. And if you did enjoy this video, drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you all in the next one.